Happy Easter, everybody. Easter Sunday. He is risen. He is risen indeed. John 16, verse 10. Jesus was actually saying to his disciples, "Very truly I tell you, you will weep and mourn while the world rejoices. You will grieve, but your grief will turn to joy." How blessed are we that we can commemorate Good Friday, remember, watch, read about the suffering that Jesus went through for us, and yet we do have that element of hope and joy, knowing what was to be happening a few days later. What an awful place to be when there is no hope. I can only imagine that is what much of the world feels when they have life kicking in on them, yucky life, yucky things, to the extent that, life is just like, what's the point? But we have hope. We have hope and we have joy. As I'm sitting through the service, the worship songs are fine, like they're beautiful and wonderful, but as Gary gets up and then as Tom gets up, and then I did have the benefit of seeing the video before, but I was thinking, the video, that's a really lovely platform for me to sort of launch from, because basically they give the message. Christ died for our sins, and thankfully Micah was honest about the chocolate. Seriously, God made chocolate. It's there for us to enjoy in any shape or form. So I believe that that's great, that is lovely and a worthy part of remembering Easter. But obviously the main reason is the joy of Christ resurrected and that he died for us. So therefore I'm thinking, there goes half, almost sermon. But as we have said time and time again, none of us communicate with each other regarding what we're going to have for the songs, what we're going to preach on, or what the prophetic time or the prayer time will involve. So much of my sermon is going to be reiterating what has been said. But I'd like to draw out a few points for us to focus on. And therefore, those of us here, we know the story. We've been doing this for years and years. I'm not saying please listen because it's me, because it's actually God is going to be speaking through me. And I put that out there now that, God, this is through God. It's not because of me. I'm just going to be a vessel for him. So I'm hoping that if you've been there and done it before, that there will at least be an element for you to walk away with and to hang on to daily. This is not a message for just today and until, this time next year. It's actually a daily message, and we've got to be taking it on board. Because, I hate to break it to you, once you become a Christian, life is not a bed of roses. So if you're new to the faith or you are young and you think, great, I've got Christ, I've got God, everything's going to work out, I'm here to tell you it won't. But something I really would like to reiterate, we'll come towards the end of my message, is something that is going to carry you through. I was sharing with someone this morning, and I've shared it at different points, where it has puzzled me that when I first became a Christian, I was there with a group of people. We were all on fire for God. We were happy to lay down our lives and send us off to wherever, if that's what you want us to do. And I am in contact with some of those people now, still, over the years, or hear about them, and they seem to have wandered away. They seem to have lost their faith. They seem to have, where is God? As life kicks in, because life does kick in. Marriages break down, marriages struggle, life doesn't go the way you had planned. You wanted children, you can't have them. You have children and they walk away. You name it, it's there. So becoming a Christian doesn't actually protect you from all that. We've got to hang on to this key message daily. So let's launch in. I want to just describe in a couple of the Gospels, it's the same story, but I want to be drawing out a few points here. From Matthew. After the Sabbath at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples. He has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Now, as Gary pointed out, the first people that knew about Jesus' resurrection were women. Just as a bit of a side note, some of the last people that were with Jesus as he was hanging on the cross were women. In that day and age, women were almost second-class citizens. They were not credible witnesses. You wouldn't call on a woman to ask for evidence regarding anything of a legal case or anything of that nature. And yet, it was women who were the first ones to see the empty tomb and then to be evangelising. They were actually instructed to do so. They were also the first to worship. So despite being afraid, they were filled with joy, and they ran to tell the disciples. They didn't just meander off and think, "Yeah, I'll tell them next week," and wow, this is, pretty cool. They ran with joy to tell the disciples. So Jesus gave them the first message to evangelise. The same sort of passage in Luke, obviously telling the same sort of story. Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11, being the disciples, and to all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them who told this to the apostles. Again, it's the women. Mark, telling a similar aspect. "Don't be alarmed," he said. "You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you." So Jesus has spoken to the women who are not credible witnesses apparently, but they go and do it anyway. They're not going to let that stop them. And in Mark, it's noted that the angel it was said to go and tell Peter. Now, if you're familiar with the story, Peter was one who was adamant. He was not going to forsake Jesus when Jesus is trying to share with them and break the news that he will be going. And Peter is saying, "No, I'll stick with you, and I love you, Lord." And obviously, Jesus calls him out on that at the time. And literally, when he's been taken away, Peter was one of the first to run away. And then not once, not twice, but 3 times denying knowing Jesus. And Jesus had foretold that, "Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows." And as the story goes, as Peter denied him for the 3rd time, the rooster crowed, and Peter was just full of guilt and shame and remembered Jesus' words. And then to actually, no doubt, see what happened to Jesus, add that to your guilt, it's like, why bother getting out of bed? Like, what's the point? Where is the hope? But here, Peter is actually called out personally. Go and tell Peter. So by now, we've got women who are not credible witnesses, were the first to see, to evangelise, to worship. We've got someone like Peter who denied him 3 times. And Jesus didn't say, go and tell the disciples, oh, don't tell Peter, or make sure Peter isn't told, or I'll deal with Peter later by myself. He actually said, go and tell his disciples and Peter. That would be, I can only imagine, just amazing. If I had done something so obviously wrong and be filled with guilt and shame, to then be named, Sarah, I really want you to know this. Forgiveness. That shame and guilt goes immediately because it is washed over by the love from Jesus. And that love that just washes away the shame and the guilt. And it's not conditional, it's just an outpouring. So Peter is redeemed and goes on bigger and better and stronger than ever. This is leading into one of the other key points. So I'll get back to that later. My second key point really. This is Jesus now at the table with his disciples. He took bread, gave thanks, broke it and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognised him and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? I reckon if they didn't recognise this guy who's breaking bread with them, and yet by what he is saying, it's burning in their hearts. I think that is something we can take as we are listening to God speak to us, as we are reading the scripture. What is burning your heart? And whatever is burning your heart, that's from Jesus. While they were still talking about this, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, peace be with you. Now, this is where I'm coming in for this insurpassable, amazing peace that never runs out. That's your core peace. So life is going to happen around you. People will love you and leave you. People will maybe not even love you, they'll just leave you. Life will happen. Marriages, struggle, whatever, you name it. We've all got it happening. Don't ever think any one of us has it all together, because I'm telling you now, if that's what you're saying, you're lying. You don't necessarily need to go and share it with everybody, but we are all struggling. We all have our struggles. We all have our valleys to walk through, and we've only got valleys because there are mountains. But these people have just seen a horrific death. And many people there are knowing that Jesus is an innocent man. And possibly many of them who are speaking, kill him, we want Jesus, not Barabbas, let Barabbas free. Just getting caught up in the everything. And yet I reckon in their hearts they know, I can't say Jesus in amongst all this when all around me are people saying Barabbas, because I'll get run over. But Jesus is saying here, peace be with you. In John also, a similar aspect. On the evening of the first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, so they're there with fear, which is fair enough after what had just happened, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. Then we have a few verses later when Thomas had not been present. So the disciples are saying, hey, Jesus is alive, and Thomas is saying, well, I wasn't there, I didn't see it. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. So we have someone like Thomas who is doubting what others are saying, which at one level I can understand. After what had been happening for the previous 3 or 4 days, what do you believe? What do you take to heart? How do you continue life and living? And when these disciples themselves are shut in a room with the doors locked because they are fearful of what's happening outside, And Jesus stands among them and says, "Peace be with you." That's not a peace we can think, understand, comprehend with our brains. How can you be peaceful when around you is a storm? And Jesus was gracious enough and loving to Thomas to actually reappear, so Thomas got the message for himself. Well-known verse, 3:16, John 3:16. "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life." It sounds so bizarre to understand why this would happen. But ultimately, sin, we are separated from God, from the holiness of God because of our sin. And it sounds easy to think, well, I'm not out there running people over or murdering people, but we are all sinful. So we are separated from God. But each one of us is worth so much to God that he sent his only Son to die on the cross. Please don't ever think, oh, he died for those people, but not for me. Or he died for those who go to church, but not for me. Or that my life is so, awful, shameful, the things I've done, the things I'm thinking, Jesus didn't die for me. That is not God speaking to you. That is actually the evil one speaking to you. Adam and Eve were set up in the garden to be in communion with God. But by their actions, they separated themselves from God. All relationships were broken. The very next part of Adam and Eve's life is we hear about their sons, and as time goes on, one kills the other and then denies it. So Jesus died on the cross for that internal peace, for relationship to be restored with God. That in itself is just amazing. We need connection with God. We have a God-shaped hole in our hearts, and we might try and fill that with other things, with job, with work, with family, with other religions and faiths and actions. We might even fill it with religiosity. I'm not sure if that's a word, but it is now. It's that I've got to go to church and I've got to do this and I've got to read my Bible every day and I've got to do whatever. It's rigidity, it's routine. And then when you don't manage to do it, you go down on yourself. We need to be, or actually God just says, come to me. And if you do your Bible study every day and you miss a few days, that's fine. God's not going to say, I'm sorry. You're in the naughty corner, and when you've repented, have a good long hard look at yourself in a wall of mirrors and then come back. God just says, it's fine. It's fine. Just come back. Come back. Keep coming back. We need reconciliation and we need relationships. And even the world will acknowledge that we need connection. We need relationships. There's a lot of stuff talked about, especially within schools, positive psychology, and can get into workplaces and being grateful and empathetic and mindful. And they are good and great things, but they actually came from God. Jesus died on that cross for us to be having connection and reconciliation back with God, this holiness of God. And remember that when the curtain tore in the temple when Jesus was crucified, it was ripped from top to bottom. And that curtain was massively high, massively thick. It's not just flinging the curtains open at home. It's it's not humanly possible to have pulled those curtains apart. But to have also pulled it from the top to the bottom, straight out there, God is saying, I'm doing this for me to have connection with you. (1 Corinthians 1, verses 17 to 18). For Christ, this is Paul speaking to the Corinthians, a place where your ranking in society was incredibly important. Am I a slave? Am I a leader? Do I have money? Am I part of the Roman Empire? Am I just a pleb having to do menial tasks? And everyone was, social status was incredibly important. And boasting about how good and wonderful I am. And rhetorical speech and sounding really wordy and lovely. Verbal diarrhea. It's like, what about the heart? So Paul is addressing these Christians, Corinthian Christians, who are also in this society where they're trying to, what was Paul teaching us about Jesus? But they're also in a society where it's important to acknowledge your status and talk about it. This is Paul saying, for Christ did not send me to baptize, but to preach the gospel, not with wisdom and eloquence, lest the cross of Christ be emptied of its power. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. Through the blood, we are brought... Sorry, that was the end of that. My summary of that is, through the blood, we are brought nearer to God. So Paul himself, who was highly eloquent and could speak, knew the language of the Jews, trying to connect with the Gentiles and not get caught up in this rhetorical speech, but actually just give the message as it is, so that everybody, whether you're a slave, master, Jew or Gentile, male or female, everyone was getting that same message, sharing that peace that surpasses all understanding. And by the blood of the cross, we are saved. And obviously highlighting that the crucifixion was for criminals. It was nothing to be proud of, obviously, if you're going to lose your life, but the family of whoever was hanging up there, it's just shame. It's humiliating. It's the most humiliating thing that could ever possibly happen. And this king that the people were expecting to be riding in with chariots and horses in armour, and you get this bloke coming in on a donkey with all the palm leaves, and then he ends up on a cross. Like, what sort of a king is that? How are you going to save us? But he did, because he went to the cross, and through his blood and his agony, we are saved. (2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21). God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. He came for us all. As we saw, he came to the women first. He wanted Peter to get the message. All sorts of characters in the Bible. I just heard one recently, a reminder story about Zacchaeus, a tax collector who climbed a tree to see what was happening and then had Jesus come and eat with him. He was here on this earth to turn the whole world upside down. He wasn't here with a rhetorical speech. He wasn't here with the horses and the armoury and the guards. He was highlighting that the first shall be last, and he's here for those, the lowest of the low. And even if we think, oh, we're up here, we've got money, we've got family, life's going really well, we're being deluded. We are being deluded. And it sometimes seems that those who actually have nothing, have not a lot, they're struggling, they're getting the message so much quicker and easier. Maybe in their life they're feeling like they've got less to lose. Whereas if I'm up here, I've got the money coming, I've got the nice house and the cars and the holidays and the family and highly expensive anything and everything, you know, well, what more do I need? We need our God-shaped hole in our heart to be filled by God. And I'm not despising, I'm not criticising money and wealth or anything like that, but we've actually got to hold everything so loosely. And if God gives us good, you know, great things, wonderful things, He's expecting great things, even better things for us to do and to share and to give to others. He does not give us anything to hold tightly and to not share or not give away. So, I'll ask the music team to come up, please. And as you're doing that, I just want to reiterate that the blood of the Lamb was shed for each and every one of us. And this is a message that we need to be taking with us every day. And Christmas is wonderful. I'm the first to say Christmas is lovely. I love babies, I love new life, I love presents, I love family, I love, you know, a bit of a holiday break and all that comes from that. And the amazing story of how Jesus is born from a virgin woman who's pregnant before she's married and all the cultural stuff that goes with that. Like, the whole thing about God and Jesus, it's just so upside down. It is seriously so upside down. There is nothing that's just going with society, yep, it's good to do this and move through the steps. But Easter, if it wasn't for Jesus dying and then rising and defeating death, then what are we about? What are we about? That's what we need to be remembering.